Welcome to the Pinal County Crime Podcast, The Trial of Terrance Santistevan, Episode 5. My name is Jodie Newell. I'm a reporter with the Casa Grande Dispatch, and joining me is Noah Cullen, another reporter from the Casa Grande Dispatch. How you going, Noah?
You're good. How are you, Jodie?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been an incredible 24 hours, Noah. I think none of us saw this coming, but the trial has concluded, and that trial is involving Terrance Santistevan, and it's in relation to a matter where he was found guilty yesterday as charged on 2 counts of murder, which involved the shooting murders of Leslie Cotter, aged 18, and Danielle Murrieta, aged 17. And this was at the Sonaran Apartments on April 24, 2022. And yesterday, on April 24, 2025, 3 years to the day, the guilty verdict was arrived, and it just sort of was a punctuation mark to a really remarkable 3 years. And yeah, what a remarkable day yesterday. I know it was just a dramatic day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. I didn't expect the verdict to come in as soon as it did. So I was kind of waiting outside the courtroom all day, waiting for it, and I didn't expect it to happen. But it happened around 3:30. We were told that there was a verdict, and so we all kind of went in there. But yeah, an emotional day for everyone. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I was in Dallas yesterday, but thank you to technology, I was able to listen to Hearing Room 3C, where the trial was heard in. And I was in a bar, or sort of in the hotel, and there was a convention going on, and all these attendees were there and making a hell of a lot of noise, and I'm trying to listen to the Justice Washburn sort of get ready for preparing to announce the verdict. So I quickly ran up to my room and then listened in, and it was quite dramatic, Noah. So before we sort of go to the the sort of arrival to the verdict, we should really touch on the closing statements leading up to that sort of tumultuous decision yesterday afternoon. And I know I've been, obviously during this whole podcast thing, I've said it's been personal because I know Janie, and I know a lot of the family members and people involved in this case. And it was, it was a very, I knew a lot about this case, leading up to it from doing stories about Danny and her family, and, just sort of watching the whole thing as it unfolded from 3 years ago. And, but even you, Noah, yesterday were quite stunned at the Defence Counsel's final summations by Christopher Lynch, and some of the things he suggested that were the reasons why Terrance should be let off. It was just I was stunned at his final summation.
Yeah. Um, yeah. I guess the state kind of goes first, and Yensville took more than an hour to sort of lay out everything that we've sort of seen within the past 6 weeks, and he sort of synthesized everything in a pretty detailed manner. Um, bringing up all of I guess, firstly, kind of the prime evidence, like the vape pen and the call detail records, sort of tracking them from the valley all the way down to Casa Grande, and then where he went after that, and then synthesizing the testimony from his girlfriend and from Elias Razo, who sort of pokes holes into his accounts, because all of this is sort of weighed against what he told police where he was. And so all of this we've sort of hashed out, I feel like, in this podcast, as we've sort of been able to digest the information on a week-to-week basis. But Yensville pretty much put it all together, in a pretty sequential, detailed manner, all over the course of like an hour. And then after he was done, it was the defense's turn to sort of go. And I was sort of taken aback by what was said. I mean, like there was a part of it was sort of not surprising, in that we sort of heard kind of rehashing of what we had heard from Lynch and from the defense counsel kind of all along. Some of the themes we've discussed before, but just sort of bringing up other potential suspects that he was criticizing the police department for not having looked into, So he's saying that it's not Santistevan, it's these other people who weren't followed up on. But then he's also saying that the familial ties, being Adrian Laos, who's Pinal County Sheriff's Office lieutenant, and then more prominently, I guess, Joe Angel Laos, who's the Prosecution Police Department deputy chief. That they both of them, of course, testified, but they were sort of you would point to them as sort of examples that that the investigation itself was a conflict of interest given Dominic Laos's involvement, and so that was sort of within what Lynch said, and that was unsurprising. But I was just so taken aback by how he just went way overboard, he went way over those sort of claims that you might have expected him to say and talk about. He went as far as to suggest that, I mean, he just suggested a conspiracy, basically, that everybody within the police department was conspiring to hide Dominic Laos's involvement, which is also alleging that Dominic Laos was the shooter, which, I mean, that wasn't even, it wasn't even necessarily what Lynch had tried to insinuate all along. I mean, there was some times during some testimony and questioning where he was insinuating something like that, but it was just this full blown alleged conspiracy was a little bit shocking to me.
Mm. I reckon this has been the quote of the whole sort of trial. Noah, you wrote, I think yesterday or the other day, where you wrote, those points were ballooned to a point that obscured any legitimate parallel to the facts presented in the last 6 weeks. And
Yeah,
that sort of sums up in a nutshell what you've just, just rolled out there, Noah.
yeah, exactly. I think, I was just, because I guess I had just expected him to sort of say what he had sort of, to kind of rehash what he had sort of been insinuating all along, to just sort of piece together his perception of the case. But it just wasn't that, and he didn't, and also I guess glaringly he didn't refute any specific, like he hardly mentioned Santistevan at all, and he hardly mentioned what he said, and he hardly tried to refute all of the evidence that Jensvold had just, because I mean Jensvold went first, putting together all of these lines of evidence and kind of synthesizing everything, and Lynch hardly even brought up any of those, any of the testimony there, any of those points of evidence. Yeah.
Sure. So just in terms of the breakdown of, the defence and the prosecution. So on the prosecution, we had Sean Jensvold, and he was assisted by Lauren Deacon. And on the defence side, as we've been talking about, Christopher Lynch was the lead defence counsel. And then you had Anne Ellsbury, and they're from the Public Defender's Office. And the matter was presided over by Daniel A. Washburn. And the hearing was heard at the Pinal County Superior Court in Florence. And as you just mentioned, Noah, with Sean Jensvold, we heard a clip during Sean's, final statements, and it was with regards to Kelsey T. Bolt. And she spoke about a phone conversation she'd heard, and between, I think, Josh and Terrance. And the thing that she told the operator at the dispatch, the police dispatch that picks up the calls and that, and listening to the call itself too, Noah, there's a lot of people calling just from day-to-day crime matters, and he sort of, can you hang on for a minute, and because this is vital evidence, and it's really compelling listening, and we will play a grab from that. But Kelsey said she couldn't live with myself knowing that 2 kids got hurt, and that's an example, I guess, of a citizen, providing a tip to police that that 2 girls had been killed, and she couldn't live with herself if she didn't tell authorities that that she knew something that may be of benefit to the investigation.
Yeah, yeah. And Yesvold sort of says, that to anybody who was there, and I think we were both there physically when she testified, and it was just obvious that she did not want to be there. She did not want to be involved. But yeah, as she says in that call, that it was just something that she felt that she just had to do. She couldn't live with herself if she didn't try to relay to the police what she knows. Yeah.
All right, let's talk about Kelsey and Josh Parker. You heard Kelsey, heard what she said on the stand. You might have also noticed some things about her demeanor during her testimony. But let's play. I'm going to play for you. You've got 2 clips from her that are in evidence. I'm not going to play both of them. I'm going to play the first one. This is the one that she made to 911. Thought she was calling a silent witness. Apparently it wasn't the right number because they recorded the call. But regardless, we have it and you heard it. So I want you to listen to it and then we'll talk about it.
I want to put a tip on the double homicide that happened in Casa Grande.
Sure, how can I help you tonight?
There's stuff online on Instagram that it's about an 18-year-old named Terrance. And I don't know his last name, but I know that he did it. And the girls weren't the target. It was another boy. I don't know his name. It was over drug money.
Hold on just a second here. And what is your name?
Can I not do this?
It's okay. Yeah, hold on just a second, okay? So what information do you have? Can you give me that again?
So, I overheard everything over a phone call. Okay, I wasn't there. He said that he had beef with a boy who was at the apartment because he said that he owed him about 14 bands. I'm assuming it's for drugs.
Actually, I'm sorry. I do apologize. Hold on just a second. And when did you hear this?
The night it happened, he went over to someone's house asking to borrow a different car because he wanted to go back to try to find this boy again. And they asked him what happened, and he said that he shot, and they asked if he hit anybody, and he said no. But then I just saw the news today because I don't live in Arizona, and I just saw the news today. And that's his vehicle. He doesn't have a license. I don't think the vehicle is registered in his name, but I know for a fact that he was pulled over in Casa Grande not too long ago.
Hold on just a second. Hold on. Okay, ma'am, are you there?
Yeah.
Do we know where he's at now?
I have no idea where he's at. I know he does not live in Casa Grande. He either lives in Tempe, Mesa, or Chandler, one of the 3. I'm not sure. I've never met this kid personally. I've only ever heard him over the phone. But I've only ever heard him once, and it was that night. And I can't live with myself knowing that two kids got hurt. I can't.
That last quote. I can't live with myself knowing that 2 kids got hurt. I can't. She's concerned about her safety. She doesn't want to give up her name. But she knows that Josh is not going to tell the truth, right? You can tell that already. So they don't even know who Josh is at this point. They get this number. She gives them the number of the person that she was talking to, probably in hopes that Josh would come clean, that she can stay out of this. But that didn't happen. They went and interviewed Josh, and he gave them part of the story. He said, oh, yeah, Terrance came over. He wanted to borrow a car. I wouldn't let him. I didn't think he had a driver's license. So you hear bits and pieces of what Kelsey says that actually stand up to what Parker said, but Parker's not telling the police the whole truth, and you can figure out why. And then when Kelsey comes in to testify, she says that, oh, no, I didn't really hear any of that 14 bands, spraying some dude in Casa Grande. I think I missed. She didn't hear any of that conversation. Seems like pretty unusual details to make up. She says that she heard it from Josh afterwards. Well, Josh, got a question mark next to his name. You had the same questions that I do. You don't believe a lot of what Josh told you here. All the stuff about, oh, yeah, he spends hours and hours on the phone with Kelsey. They fall asleep with the phone, and all they talk about is the weather. I mean, it's nonsense. It's also nonsense that they're just drinking buddies. He wants to deny that he had a romantic relationship with Kelsey. For what reason, I don't know. I can only speculate. But what's not true is that she came up with these details, and then he says, oh, no, I put the phone in the bedroom or wherever he said it was. I put her on mute. So she could not hear anything of what was said by Terrance at the front door or right inside the front door, wherever it happened. And he didn't tell her anything. Well, if that were true, how did Kelsey come up with this information? That part is ridiculous. Now, Kelsey comes in here. You could tell she didn't want to be here. This was not something that she wanted to be part of. But now she says that, no, she only heard that afterwards from Josh. But listen to that tape again. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. And then listen to the other clip with her interview with Sergeant Martinez basically the next day or two. She doesn't say once that, yeah, Josh, my friend, told me that this is what happened. That's not what she says. She says that I heard this. In other words, she's on the phone, like one of those conversations that she has with Josh, probably talking about more than the weather. And then he drops the phone, Terrance comes over. He even tells her before Terrance gets there that he's coming over. And she hears that conversation. She didn't make this conversation up. She's calling out of concern because she knows that Josh isn't going to tell anybody. So she's got to be the one to give this information because she knows what she heard. Okay? That's why we brought Kelsey out here, even though she didn't want to be here.
Going back to Lynch's final summation, I mean, he brought up, trains. He brought up zucchini bread. I mean, I don't know. I was sort of kind of stunned at some of the things that he was speaking about. He said the train had arrived in the courtroom and the jury was driving the train. Okay, so we use analogies. I guess we've used analogies as well too, but it was quite a remarkable closing statement. And it was, I know I'm still shocked now.
Yeah. I guess I don't know what else to say.
There's nothing much else to say, is there really? No.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I guess other than just that he just could have said some, like, he didn't have to say what he said. He didn't have to make these huge allegations in this closing statement. I mean, he could have stuck to sort of what he had been sticking to the whole time. He could have sort of tried to more minutely kind of go through his questioning within the past 6 weeks. And so, I was just a little bit confused as to why he didn't say some things. And
This investigation had one goal, and that was to do not look at Dominic or any of his associates, because we're really going to have to look at Dominic then. Now, when this investigation began at the Casa Grande Police Department, it was a runaway train run by them. No one timely filing reports. No one doing follow-up. No one developing any theory of what these other suspects could have done. Where were they? What did they do? Did they really have motive? No follow-up. No supervision by Sergeant Cardita. It was a runaway train. There's no doubt about that. But that all ends. It all ended, thank God, when the case landed here. The train is here in this courtroom right now. I'm not on it. They're not on it. He's not on it. Just you. That's it. You're the ones that are driving the train now. You heard the evidence. You heard all the evidence. Now, when you first came in, we talked about what I'll call the train tracks. There were agreements that you made. You raised your hand. I asked the questions. Some people were removed from the jury, weren't allowed to serve. But the questions that I asked were simple, and you all agreed to follow them. If they fail to prove each and every element of the crime beyond a reasonable doubt, each and every one of you agreed and raised your hand that you would vote not guilty. First part of the tracks. Second part of the tracks. Terrance Santistevan is innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. I asked each and every one of you, do you all agree with that? You all raised your hand, yes. Terrance Santistevan can testify, or he can refuse to testify. And if he refuses to testify, you cannot hold that against him. Do you all agree with that? It's a principle of our law. If you agree, raise your hand. You all raised your hand. And finally, I asked you the last, what I think is the most important one, but it's the hardest of them all, right? Because we're all human beings. And we want to see some justice for these two dead girls. So it's hard to keep sympathy out of it. It's really hard. You've been here for 6 weeks. You might be thinking in the back of your mind, I'm going to have to find him guilty because I've been here for 6 weeks, and isn't that what my job is? The answer is a resounding no, and you agreed to it. Your job is to do justice. And that justice will be done for those girls. There finally will be some justice for them. Doesn't mean guilty. It means, did they prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt, yes or no? And if the answer is no, there's only one place for that train to go. So let's go through it, if you don't mind, together. And we're going to talk a little bit about reasonable doubt. And I'm going to run through it. I've already got my drawings right here, believe it or not. So we're not going to waste any time with me trying to draw. Kind of like the Tonight Show. Just throw the paper on the floor. Oh, what do we have here? We've got a justice train. Who's on it? Not me. Not them. Not him. No court reporter. Just you. There's where you are. And then we have these cars of reasonable doubt. Why'd I do that? Because there's a lot of information here. Long trial. Easy to be lost in the detail. First, we have the Casa Grande Police Department as a source of reasonable doubt. Did they do a full and fair investigation of this double homicide? And then I've got down here conflict. Was there a conflict for them to get involved in right from the start? And I'm going to do those in reverse order. Of course, there was a conflict. They never should have kept the case. The head of the Criminal Investigation Division was Angel Leos, who was the grandfather of Dominic Leos. Virtually all of the detectives who testified know Adrian Leos, have practiced with him, have been involved with SWAT teams or this team or that team or whatever it is. They all know each other. Some of the detectives, like Martinez, are personal friends with Adrian Leos. Personal friends with Jamie Leos. Martinez was a personal friend of Kyle Curtis's mom and dad, Sally and Lee. Remember, she made him some zucchini bread and he took it. He never should have been involved in this investigation to begin with. Never. He should have jumped out of it with his own common sense, but he didn't. None of them did. Why not? Because mission number one was Dominic is not a suspect and will never be a suspect. That's mission number one for that Casa Grande Police Department. You don't have to guess at that. You'll see as we move through. How could that be, right? Well, if it really was a conflict and they wanted to wall off Angel Leos, what they would have done was, in writing, they would have said, Angel Leos is not to have anything to do with this investigation. Stay away from him and don't talk to him. They didn't do it in writing. So they say that instead what they did was they met and they had a conversation and they told everybody. They didn't tell Ellsworth. The lead detective, she didn't know anything about it. Soon after this oral directive was given, what did Angel Leos do? He got involved. He involved himself with the Department of Public Service regarding the shell casings, trying to get them tested in Tucson. Naming my client in the notice, and then basically lying from the stand, telling you that, they won't do anything unless you've got a suspect name and a date of birth. Really? Think about that. Scientific labs won't do anything without a suspect's name. The vast majority of the work that they do is to find out who the suspect is. Identify the suspect. He finally came around to that, right? He finally realized it. How what he was saying made absolutely no sense. Of course that's what they do. Oh, but I mean, if you want it done quickly, how about if you want it done by a friend at the DPS because your grandson's life is on the line, or might be?
I mean, Terrance Santistevan had a really flimsy alibi. This guy called Midwest that we never got to see. And, Kev the Crackhead made another appearance or mention of him yesterday. And it's just a really, really flimsy alibi that really didn't fly. And I think just looking at the jury was what they were dismissed yesterday, or the day before yesterday. To appoint a foreman and get together and discuss all the evidence, and then the first day of them doing that, they came to a very, very quick conclusion that Terrance Santistevan was guilty on the evidence, and that was circumstantial, and they had to prove beyond reasonable doubt that he was guilty. And looking at the circumstances of Terrance's life, we've sort of gone over that ground through other podcasts, Noah, but the circumstances clearly led to that he was there with his phone, he was there with his car, and there was so much evidence that backed that up. The Taco Bell receipt, which I might add, Tisa Ellsworth did get, and people I think have maybe forgotten that, but receipts are a really important piece of evidence. Noah, if you ever want to get a return from a store or something, you've got to have your receipt. And a receipt, is a very, powerful form of evidence on another series of levels. So that was a really key piece of evidence as well, because it located him in the area, because it was found in his car when they eventually found his car. The phone that he was using just disappeared all of a sudden. Him and his mum nicked off to Pflugerville in Texas. There was just so many things that just didn't add up to his alibi. No, it was a very, very flimsy alibi, and I wonder why he didn't, testify. I just found it, it was just the whys and what ifs. You always think that during a case, but the alibi was so flimsy.
Yeah. I guess I didn't know whether he would testify. He would have been subject to some harsh questioning if he had testified. I mean, it would have been pretty tough. He would have gotten some pretty tough questions, I think, from the prosecution. So I think I wasn't too surprised it didn't testify. But I mean, there was just those some of those top pieces of evidence were just hard. I mean, to Lynch's credit, I mean, some of those pieces of evidence are just hard to refute. I mean, the vape pen found at the scene with his DNA, that places him at the scene, and he says he's not there. The phone records following him all the way from the valley to Casa Grande, and the phone leaves right after the shooting happens. That same phone number is texting his mom and his girlfriend when he's claiming that Midwest is the one that has his phone. That's kind of hard to say that Midwest is never found. Then that's kind of flimsy. Then he goes to Texas. I mean, some of that is just hard to review.
Yeah, and the way that Terrance and his mother quickly fled, to Pflugerville, and the friends of Julie, like that girl that testified way back at the start of the case. She had no idea that her friend Julie, they were very close, and now they're no longer friends. Said that she had no idea that that Julie was just going to go to Pflugerville, and it was just one of those up and away type things, and then we had that lady from Alaska.
Yeah,
sort of spoke about how she heard about what was going, and she felt extremely uncomfortable about her. She was pregnant at the time, and she was concerned for her own safety as well. So, there was a lot of mitigating, when you found out the backstory of what was going on in both worlds of all of the people involved, the circumstances just, pointed to that he had done this, and it's been proven. The jury have seen the facts, they've made up their mind, and they've said guilty on both charges. So it was a very flimsy alibi. Did you want to just sort of touch on, because to me, one of the crucial bits of evidence that really did nail Mr. Santistevan was the prison interview, Noah, with Salinas, Martinez, and I think Ramirez was there that day in the prison in Texas. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. Just to kind of go through what he said then. Is that what you asked? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Just because I mean, I think it was Jensvold, yes, in his closing argument, sort of saying that, he was of the opinion that Santistevan started to make his story up then and there in that prison when Selena started to talk to him, and it started to sort of. That's when the narrative began. That's when his alibi, or the crafting of his alibi, began.
Yeah. Again, well, what did they tell him? They told him something in the beginning of the interview that Jensvold was talking about. That sort of maybe triggered why Santistevan's alibi was what it was, right? What the detectives told him something about his car, right?
That's right, about the car. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
No, yeah. So.
And
I think it's. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just going to. The detectives sort of say something about that they know, and that they know about his car, and then that sort of leads Santistevan to make up a certain story, and that story was that he wasn't the one driving his car at all that day. He lent it to his friend, whose name was Midwest, and that he said that the only time that he left his house that day was to go to Kane's at around like 10 a.m. I think. And when his mom's house was searched, and he said that he took his other car, which he would drive it, which was this old Cadillac. And then when his house was searched, they found that there were cobwebs on the wheels of the car, and so that just sort of showed that the car hadn't been driven recently.
Yep, and I think Jensvold alluded in his closing statements that there was that Santistevan had reposted an image of the Cadillac being driven, and that Santistevan had sent that video to Dominic Laos, the day after or something, saying, "Hey, listen, I wasn't there. I was driving my Cadillac," and yet when Detective Salinas went to see Santistevan's house, there was the Cadillac, and it was covered or something, and there was, like you say, cobwebs on the wheel that suggested that this car hadn't gone anywhere.
Yeah. That video that he posted was the exact same video that he had posted to the account in like the December of 2021. I think so. This was a video that he's reposting that he had posted before the shooting even happened.
Mm-hmm. And then Jensvold touched on too the videos, the social media videos of Razzo and Santistevan with the weapons, and Jensvold said, well, Razzo fessed up because he had the loyalty tattoo on his arm. I mean, you could see it. It was clearly loyalty on his right arm. You couldn't refute that. But yet when he was wearing a white jacket and he had the M belt buckle and all that stuff, he said, "Oh no, I've never seen that." And all due credit to Sean Jensvold and Lauren Deacon. They really did pull apart a lot of their claims and that. And it was just tremendous work by the prosecution, Noah, in sort of breaking down those very, very flimsy narratives.
Yeah, and in doing that, I mean, a lot of what he said during the closing statement was sort of kind of, I don't know if advising is the right word, but sort of telling the jury that, of course, ultimately it is their decision what they think, but he's sort of telling them that that you can believe all of what somebody is saying, a part of what somebody's saying, or none of what they're saying, but he sort of gave some examples like that of sort of some of what these people are saying is not adding up, and when you compare it to other accounts of the same scenario, like he brought up like Kelsey Tybalt and Josh Parker, he said that both of their narratives of their phone call, even though the main thrust of that was true, was that Santistevan was there that night, but she didn't say that he was in his own story. And then he said that he wanted to try to borrow a car, but Kelsey's and Josh's stories, and like I think Josh said that he had muted the phone and he had left it on his bed, and that they had spoken in the kitchen, but that obviously wasn't true because Kelsey had obviously heard what they were talking about. So just I guess all of that is to say that Mansfield was sort of telling the jury that to pick and choose who you believe and what you believe.
Mm. And I guess it's fair to say too, I mean, the Casa Grande Police Department were on trial as well too, Noah, in a sort of indirect way, in the way that they handled the case. And I mean, I'm not going to be, you know, so one-sided to say, they did like they were just all perfect. They weren't perfect. There were things that could have been done better. And, and I said a few weeks ago that they adjusted so well with, Tyler Miller. I mean, he did a tremendous job in, garnering all that incredible phone evidence and social media evidence. I mean, they would have had to go through hours of stuff, and they collated some really, really damning evidence with the cell phone records and with the social media records, and it was really hard to refute that they were in those videos, for goodness sake. I mean, it wasn't anybody else. Razzo, that was him in the videos. There's no doubt about it. And Terrance Santistevan was in those videos as well too. You couldn't dispute that. And so I think the police department, they'll obviously go back and in future murder cases, I think that they'll have practices that make sure that that they do a job that's appropriate to investigation. I think, all things considered, I think it was a remarkable achievement by the police department, because ultimately they have to prove, and then the prosecution has to, prove with the evidence that they've been given by the police department that this fellow was guilty, and they were able to do that, and very, very convincingly. No, I mean, the jury, not even half a day or almost half, they just said, no, this guy's guilty. We've seen what we've seen, and we've come to that verdict of guilty.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Lynch questioned almost every single detective in the entire police department, and strongly. I mean, he kind of went after all of them, and I mean, he had some jabs here and there. I mean, I think Ellsworth sort of took the brunt of it, given that she was removed from the case and she was the one who was replaced by Miller. So I mean, yeah, he questioned everybody, and there was mistakes were made, but I mean, she took responsibility for it, and she may have. Well, I think she took the brunt of the criticism of the investigation, and yeah, she fessed up to some of the mistakes that she made. But yeah, I mean, Lynch harshly questioned every detective, or almost every, it seemed, an officer in the department, and so yeah, he landed some jabs, but he only got so far, I think.
Mm-hmm. And they owned up to their shortcomings. I mean, McCabe did it as well too. Like for to say there was a conspiracy, I think is a nonsense. And they were quite frank and forthcoming at their shortcomings. And we could have done better. We could have done this. And that's not the sort of behaviour of an organisation trying to cover up things. They were extremely frank, and it was it was uncomfortable, particularly for Tisa. I mean, it was a tough day for her, and but she to the letter was honest and told it as it is, and full credit to her, and and I don't see there was anything hidden from that. So yeah. No, just on Lauren Deacon. I mean, we had zucchini bread and trains. I mean, she started to talk about noodles. No, I was sort of thinking, I was sort of saying, Lauren, quit while you're ahead. Like this, stick to, But I mean, it was interesting hearing her refer to noodles and Sesame Street. One thing isn't just like the other, and all that. It was an interesting final summation from her as well too. After she was responding to Lynch's closing statements.
Yeah, she was doing the rebuttal to, it was the state goes and they're closing, and then the defense, and then the state has an opportunity to sort of refute what was just said. And so yeah, she didn't speak for very long, but I don't know, I think she had to sort of get up there and refute some of what the defense said, and you have the opportunity to do it, so why wouldn't you? And yeah. Noodles of distraction is what she said.
Right here, That's right. Yeah, that's it. I was going to say, in rebutting Lynch's closing statement, prosecutor Lauren Deacon, and you've spelled it right, Noah, described these
Yeah.
lines of doubt as noodles of distraction. I think that's a very fair summation of Lauren's closing statements.
The investigation noodle. All right, this one I'm not going to go on too long. So, report writing problems, personnel policies, whether or not Detective Ellsworth should or should not be a detective and should have gone back to patrol or when and why. That's just noodles we're throwing to try to distract you. Okay, those are things that do not help you determine whether or not Terrance is the one who killed these girls. Whether or not it was in a report doesn't matter. What matters is what came out here. Right? Things that weren't in reports were shared in briefings. They were in body-worn camera. They were clearly memorialized in some way because they came here and you got to hear about it. All the stuff about the Leos family, there being a conflict of interest, and whether or not the Casa Grande Police Department should have, in best practices, in a perfect world, transferred this out. Maybe. You heard lots of reasons on why they couldn't. Who else was going to take it? And even one of you asked, well, what about like the timeliness of this? Like evidence is coming in right now. How are you supposed to get this out to someone else before that evidence is lost? Yeah, very true. Very true. But it also didn't have any actual effect on the investigation and the evidence. Should Angel have asked? Did he ask? And if he did, should he have asked, hey, what's going on with this high-profile case that's in our department? What's the status of it generally? Everything going okay? You could argue maybe he shouldn't have, but did he do anything to affect the investigation any differently than anything else? No, he didn't. Not at all. These are all things these noodles are meant to distract you. Like Mr. Jensvold told you, you've got to remember to keep your eyes on what's important. Whether you put it up in the jury room or you are simply able to remember these are the elements of the crime and here's what I'm here to determine. The other things don't matter in making that decision. They are meant to distract you. So now we got the follow-up noodle. This follow-up. Okay, lots and lots of follow-up was done. If it hadn't been, this trial would have been done 4.5 weeks ago. From the very beginning, police had Terrance's name from that night. You just heard that recently from Detective Miller and his conversation with Axel, that he got information straight from Dominic. That doesn't mean they didn't look at everything else. There was those rumors about Jose Nunez. Just because they were able to rule him out quickly doesn't mean they did it easily or lazily. There was location data. There was message data. There's eyewitness data. There's no motive whatsoever. We'll get to that some more in a second. They were able to rule him out. He had an alibi, a real alibi, unlike the one Terrance tried to give. He was not there. Mr. Lynch said, well, they could have gotten some PC for other phones, other unknown phones. I'm not sure what phones he wanted, but also you can't just make up probable cause. You have to have probable cause that an item would actually lead you to evidence that would solve a crime in order to be able to invade that person's privacy. I mean, could you imagine, like, supposed to get the phone of everybody who lives there? Everybody who might have known Dominic at some point? No, there's no evidence that suggests they have anything to do with this case. So while defense may dream about things, doesn't mean that it's at all relevant or that it would have affected what you need to do, what you are supposed to have your eyes on and remain focused on. They followed up on all other viable leads, right? Detective Miller just talked about that again recently this week, right? Whether it was Mr. Nunez, Elias, who, can you monkey with an ankle monitor? That's more speculation that Mr. Lynch is asking you to do, which is exactly what you took an oath not to do. There is zero evidence that could happen or did happen. Therefore, not to be considered. Period, the end. Moving on. The follow-up tasks that Detective Ellsworth was not getting to timely were completed. And they were completed by Detective Miller within a matter of hours, you heard from his sergeant. They were done. The Taco Bell cup noodle. Well, what if somebody else's DNA was on that straw from touching it at the Taco Bell or a buddy in the car, or whatever? Well, what if? It could have exonerated him. But only if you ignore all the other evidence, which you cannot do, also with your oath. The vape pen DNA at the scene, the ski mask in the car, the same place as that Taco Bell cup, the cell phone location data. You would have to ignore all of those things to think that DNA on a cup might fully exonerate somebody. No. Is it something that could have been helpful? Maybe. You don't have that answer. Can you speculate about what it would be? No, you may not. Does it affect the strength of the evidence in this case? Absolutely not. Because you have these things and so much more. This one was big. The other suspect noodle, right? We're going back to Sesame Street. My 4-year-old, almost 5-year-old, loves this. She too can reason out things like this. Okay, so which one is not like the others, right? So let's start with this one. We've got Dominic. There's the allegation from defense that the Casa Grande Police Department, the whole entire time, their goal was make sure they didn't get. Well, there's zero evidence of that, but also then I guess mission failed because Dominic was got. The phones downloaded by Detective Miller were provided to the feds, and then Dominic went to prison. So what? We make sure we don't get Dominic for killing his girlfriend, for whom he has no motive to kill, and all of the witnesses say he wasn't there? Makes no sense. He was there when the police got there. And he didn't have a gun on him. Kyle had been with him. Kyle told you he was with me. His demeanor suggests he had no idea that Leslie was going to be killed that night. You saw it on the body worn.
I just want to ask you, Noah, about just what were your thoughts when you heard that there's been a verdict? I mean, I got the text from you, and I was absolutely shocked. I was stunned. But then I thought, no, this bloke's guilty. He's gone. He's going down. I had no doubt. I actually, a few weeks ago, I just thought, no, this guy's guilty as when we learned all about the information and everything. And I in a way, I wasn't surprised that that the verdict came in so quickly. Just sort of want to comment about what you sort of felt and what was the sort of scene like at the courtroom yesterday when those dramatic sort of things sort of evolved into that sort of manner.
Yeah. Yes, I was there most of the day, and so I was literally sitting right outside the courtroom. That way I would know if a verdict came. I didn't expect it to happen the first day, because this was the first day of deliberation, and they didn't even take the full day. It was like 3:30 or something, I think, when they kind of had their decision, and it has to be unanimous. So this is why it can take so long. Every single juror has to agree, and so if they have one or two holdouts, then they're going to be there until they get them to agree, or they have to. It has to be unanimous. So that's why it can take so long. But yeah, so I was sitting outside the courtroom pretty much all day. And I was sort of surprised when they kind of came back, and so they kind of told me that there was a verdict, and then I waited in there, and 10 minutes maybe went by, and everybody. It was a lot. The room was a lot more crowded than it had been throughout the whole trial, and then a lot more people in there, and the gallery was pretty much full, and it just felt really like, I don't know. Thinking about it, it just kind of felt like humid in there. I don't know. You could tell something.
Cut the air with a knife. Yeah, it was pretty tense. Yeah.
Yeah, it really was, and yeah, it was really heavy, and it was really emotional, and yeah, a lot of sort of complex feelings going on.
Yeah.
It was like 15 minutes long. Jury comes in, they hand, judge asks them if they have a verdict. The foreperson says yes. Then they give it to the judge, and then the judge's assistant reads out the counts, each first-degree murder count, and the jury could have decided to go to second-degree murder if they had thought that was more appropriate, but he was convicted on both counts of first-degree murder, so there was no amended no lesser included charge. And yeah, it was just tough. But um, I mean, yeah, I think I was happy that for the families, and that there was a sense that justice was. I mean, this is what Brad Miller released a statement today, the county attorney, and he said that the justice was served, and so I think that as hard as it is to sort of sit in there, and um, I think that feeling is sort of there. That this is now 3 years to the day for the shooting happened. It's crazy that for the coincidence that it's the exact same day 3 years ago, but there's a sort of feeling that to some extent um, justice was done.
I don't know what the jury was thinking, obviously, but number one, they obviously they saw that justice was the appropriate to Terrance Santistevan, of being found guilty. They saw fit to deliver that to him. But I think they were very mindful of that anniversary as well too. It was brought up by Jens Vold, and it was sort of mentioned just in the processes of just that was getting close to that anniversary, and I think that's a very magnanimous sort of gesture by the jury to sort of maybe that sort of helped in their deliberations as well too, that that it was some kind of an acknowledgement of the pain that these families have gone through, Noah. And I've seen that firsthand with Janie in particular. Um, she's been a remarkable woman. She's the mother of Danielle, and she's been there every day. And she's had to sit through some pretty awful evidence. And, she's had to sit through having the person who was found guilty of murdering her daughter, she's had to sit in the same room. And she's conducted herself with such dignity and grace and strength that I found it inspiring. And I also found Claudia Sanchez as well too, similar fashion. She lost her daughter Leslie, and there was no at all any expressions of malice or anything like that. They were quite remarkable, those two mothers, and it was something to behold, and I'll never forget it. And I'm just really quite thrilled that those mothers. It doesn't bring back their girls, but they got justice yesterday. It was so deserved, and I'm just really pleased for the families, and and hopefully the days will be a lot kinder, and that that there be some kind of closure to this matter, because it's been a pretty emotional trial, Noah, hasn't it?
Yeah, and yeah, that was certainly felt on the last day, but I mean throughout. Yeah,
Was there any gasps, or was there any just in terms of when the verdict was read out, was there any gasps, or or sort of gasps of shock, or what was sort of what did you see there, Noah,
yeah,
when the actual you know
yeah. There were. I mean, each count is read separately, and each respective family did sort of gasp and sort of and hold each other when each verdict was read out. So I mean, yeah, yeah. There's only so much emotion that you can hold in. I mean, of course, yeah. There was a reaction, and then yeah, and then the judge actually, he's um,
yeah,
he got a
he
little
got
bit.
quite emotional too, didn't he,
Yeah,
Noah? Yeah, yeah,
he kind of did. Yeah, I appreciated what I liked what he said a lot to the. He was kind of turned to the jury and sort of thanked them so much for what they had done, and he said that I'm sure all of you have sacrificed something to be here, but we're not going to know what that is, and your your close friends and family may know kind of what you did during this trial, but not many people in general are going to know, and but it was, I mean, that we're asking a lot of these. I mean, these 12 people are asked to determine the fate of somebody else's life. And we should say, I mean, maybe it's obvious, but first degree murder carries a life sentence. So I mean, this is a huge
yeah,
decision that they're making for somebody else. And so I think the judge was sort of putting that in perspective for the court, and also just telling the jury, and it just seemed really personal. I mean, he really was passionate about it. I think he really wanted
yeah.
the jury to know that it matters a lot.
Mm-hmm. I think in our very first podcast, Noah, and the thing that really impressed me about Daniel Washburn, the Honourable Daniel Washburn, was that he really made a point of explaining to the jury and to the people in the gallery about the sanctity of the jury and the significance of the role that they play. That obviously the judge is, he's the guy that directs things and makes sure that everything's done above board. I mean, you and I, we were subject to the judge at times, and we were told to follow proper procedure and that, and if there was anything that needed to be done, we had to do what the judge said, like
Yeah.
maybe remove photos of whatever. So he made sure that the proceedings and the sanctity of the courtroom was preserved, and he did go out of his way to talk about what the jury means and what their responsibility is, and listening to his, when we'll play a grab of the Honourable Judge Washburn in his final remarks, he was really emotional. It sort of sounded like he was choking up, Noah, because it is a very significant decision, because you're putting away a young person who made some very, very bad mistakes. The kid, he's a kid. He's 20 years of age now, and he's going to spend the whole of his life, presumably, as the sentence is prescribed, to the term of his natural life. And, that's a very, very significant and very, a very harsh punishment, which is deserving. But, that's a very, a lot of responsibility with deciding that on people's lives, Noah.
Yeah, exactly. And and like you said, I mean, the judge was sort of very adamant about that sort of respect for the jury, kind of the whole time. I mean, whenever they enter the room and exit the room, everybody stands, and this is procedure always, but I mean, it's matters. I mean, it kind of reminds you all every time that the jury is sort of, they're going to be the ones who are making the ultimate decision here, and so at the end, after they had made that decision, the judge was really sort of passionate in his thanks to them about, and letting them know that what they did was just really important.
Thank you, all of you. You've had a heavy burden placed on you, and there may have been evidence that you saw or heard that was difficult to sit through. Nevertheless, you sat through and you fulfilled your responsibility. I want to thank you for fulfilling your civic duty and performing this difficult task. I am certain all of you have made some sort of sacrifice. As jurors, we won't know what those sacrifices are. But I'm certain many of you have made some difficult sacrifices. 6 weeks is a long time, and we asked a lot of you to do that. This is likely going to be a life-changing event for you, and likely will impact your lives. Aside from your family and close friends, not very many people are going to know what you did. But I want you to know that you've performed a great service for which you should be pleased with, in terms of fulfilling your duty as a citizen and as a resident of Arizona. Once again, I express my deepest thanks to you and wish the best for you. You are now discharged as jurors, which means you can now talk about the case with anyone you want. You can do, if you choose to, not talk about the case. And you can look into the internet or whatever you want to do at this point. There is no longer an admonition. You are free to do what you want.
Yep. So on a process base, what happens next? I know we've got a sentencing thing now, and what happens next, Noah?
So I think the sentencing is it. I mean, the jury is, they've done their job. They're officially released. They can talk about the case now. But I think the last thing is sentencing will be on May 16th in the morning. And in Arizona, if you're convicted of first-degree murder, it's either the death penalty or it's life in prison. And for the death penalty, prosecutors have to sort of decide beforehand whether they're going to pursue that. And so in this case, they decided not to. And so even like the sentencing hasn't been determined yet, but I mean, it's life in prison is the only option.
That's right, to the term of his natural life. So that's it's a very daunting form of punishment, and like I said, it's absolutely appropriate in this case. Yeah. I just, again, I'm just in total admiration of the families, Janie and Claudia and everyone else that turned up to support the families. They turned up every day driving from Casa Grande to Florence or wherever, and it's not an easy road to go along, Noah. And you had country thunder as well too. There was a lot of things to navigate, and there were some days where people were, we had a bit of a laugh, but there were some days where, I mean, some of the things that we witnessed in terms of the evidence, I hope I never get to see anything like it again. It was quite confronting at times. And I mean, you and I, we're outsiders. We're not part of the families, and they had to deal with that. They had to deal with some of the evidence that was, necessary as part of the process. But they were just remarkably stoic, and I just hope all the best for all of them. And I know the community of Casa Grande are very happy about the verdict. I've spoken to a lot of people since yesterday, and they're really happy that justice has been delivered to the families. And I just hope, as I said before, that life's a little bit kinder, and that hopefully things will be a little bit better than what they have been the past few years. It doesn't bring back Danny or Leslie, but justice has been served, because it would have been an absolute travesty if this person had been let off. It just would have begged belief, Noah.
Yeah, I think like I was saying, I mean, nothing can bring back their lives, of course, but there is a sort of a sense that justice has been served, and that that we live in a place and in a society that that punishes people for the crimes that they commit, and life in prison, I think, is the appropriate punishment.
I guess no, there's nothing really much to talk about, is there? It's we've covered a hell of a lot of territory in the past 5 to 6 weeks. It's been a remarkable journey, and finally justice was delivered. But I've got to say a few thank yous first before we sort of wrap this up. And number one, I'd like to really thank our editor, Joey Chenoweth. A few weeks ago, I put on the power suit and I walked into the office first thing Monday morning. I said, "Listen, Joey, we've got to do this. We've got to cover this. We've got your writings, Noah. You did a tremendous job through the whole trial, and but I just thought, because people were asking me, what's going on, Jodie? Tell us what's going on." And I thought, let's do a podcast. Let's try and sort of fill in some of the extra details and that. I think we've done that pretty reasonably well. I mean, we've made mistakes and we've got some names wrong and whatever. But I think it's been really important to get that extra detail, and in today's modern storytelling environment, Noah, we can do that now with podcasting and that, and so I just would like to thank Joey for letting us do that, and I'd also like to thank Rafita Corella, our assistant editor, for getting the logo for the podcast and helping out with the tech side of things, and also Donovan Kramer, from the owner of Kramer Media. They've just been tremendous in their support for us and getting this podcast out. And it's been a remarkable journey now. And we've had so many views. I think last time I counted, we've had a combined views of around 2,200 views. So people have been watching.
Yeah, that's awesome to see. Yeah.
I'm going to show you a couple of things that I had that I carried with me during the case. This is a flower of young Danny, and it was handed out to people at a funeral service 3 years ago. And also, I took this to the trial with me too every day. That's a photo of Danny that was taken downtown, and that's the prom dress she was wearing the night before she sadly lost her life. They're remarkable photos from her little memorial booklet that was given to people that attended her funeral, and also young Leslie as well too. There she is. And that was from her funeral that was held in Eloy. And like I said again, I just would like to wish all the families, the best wishes. And I'm going to close and use young Danny's words. And she said this. She said, "I won't get distracted. I've got dreams to chase, not people to impress." And on that note, on behalf of Noah Cullen, my name's Jodie Newell. And thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for listening. And we wish all the best to the families of Leslie and Danny. Thank you.